Hello guys, what's going on? Welcome back to my videos. Today, guys, the best Bloodline tier list in shit life. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, comment for more. Let's get right to the video, guys. Alright, guys, so I have actually added a new tier to the tier list. It's going to be absolutely busted. This tier is specifically going to be for the Bloodlines I believe need to be nerfed ASAP. Absolutely busted are going to be Bloodlines I believe just need nerfed as soon as possible, simply because they're just way too good right now. Starting with Akuma. Akuma is actually going to be going in the good tree. The good, I believe, is going to be at the top of good near the end of this tier list, simply because Akuma is just overall a very good bloodline. I've been seeing it used more, which is actually kind of funny, simply because it's one of the worst Akumas. But it actually is a very good bloodline to use, and if you get stuck with it, it's not the worst thing in the world. Next up to be Gotojoke. Gotojoke is going to be in Broken, simply because Gotojoke's damage is immense. All of its abilities are instant casts. It has 2 iframes. The mode kind of sucks balls, but other than the mode, Gotojoke is actually a very, very, very good bloodline to use in this current meta. Next up is going to be Ashes Storm. Ashes Storm is going to be in really good. I feel like Ashes Storm at the moment, I feel like after the rework, Ashes Storm is going to be at near the top of really good, rather than the bottom really good of what it was before. I feel like the rework of Ashes Storm is very, very good overall, and it may even move into Broken if there are changes in the current meta with nerfing bloodlines. It may actually move it to Broken simply because it may fit other bloodlines better. Next up to be Azarashi. Azarashi is going to be below Kuma because Azarashi is literally just Woodbind 2.0. Azarashi is just Nature 2.0 in my personal opinion, and they actually did nerf the Z-spec of it, so now it no longer stuns when you pull someone in. But other than that, Azarashi is just overall a very, very good bloodline in my personal opinion. Next up is going to be a Zimseko. Zimseko is going to be at the bottom really good. It's actually going to be moving up because the counter is one of the single best counters in the game. And they actually did buff the damage of his Zimseko. So overall, it's just a very good bloodline to use. And you guys should check it out after the buffs. Next up is going to be Bankai Kuma. Bankai Kuma is going to be at the top of Broken. Bankai Kuma has the auto dodge and all of the other abilities now do less chi. The C-spec is a block break and it can steal mode. And it does get a Susanoo, which is very, very overpowered, and it does only drain 25 MD a second. Next up to be Black Shock. Black Shock is going to be actually in the middle of good for now. Black Shock actually did get a bunch of buffs recently, which actually is going to move it up from meh or bad to good. It's going to currently be in the middle of good. I feel like the Z-spec, the speed increase, and all that stuff is going to overall make Black Shock in the middle of good. Next up to be Bolt. Bolt's going to be in meh. I know it did get buffed, but Bolt is still kind of a meh bloodline. I feel like there's not really a real reason to ever use Bolt as it currently is. It just doesn't do enough damage, and it was a very damage-oriented bloodline before it actually got nerfed. But it did get buffed a tiny bit, so take that into account. Next up is going to be Bubble. Bubble is going to be the first absolutely busted one. Rel, why did you remove the hand signs on Bubble? Why? Oh my gosh. I feel like there was things you could do to Bubble that would make it better, right? Like remove end lag on the last ability. Sure, that'll be make it really, really good, right? It would be broken. But you removed the hand signs. Why? Next up is going to be Clay. Clay is actually going to be in really good in the middle of really good, simply because Clay now has iframes and now has a block break. Clay overall is turning into a very, very good bloodline, and Clay has moved up in this tier list drastically. It has moved from bad to meh to good to really good now, and it's going to be in the middle of really good for now. Next up to be Crystal. Crystal is going to be at the bottom of good. I know this is actually going to be very surprising, but Crystal actually did get buffed even more. Now the first ability of Crystal now has no hand signs whatsoever, and all of the abilities, I believe, got a chi cost reduction. So now, the stun is literally immediate. It's just an immediate stun. And the second ability of it now is one of the single best combo extenders in the game to use. Next up is going to be Dongan. Dongan is going to be at the bottom really good. Dongan actually did get a damage buff. If you guys did not know that, the third ability of Dongan is now... It does now do a lot more damage, but there still is a few more changes to Dongan until it moves up in the really good tier. Next up is going to be Dioseko. Dioseko is going to be at the bottom of Broken. Time Stop, as good as ever. The Auto Dodge, as good as ever. And they even buffed the damage of Dioseko. So it's going to be probably more on the Broken tier list than really good. I know some people were debating on really good or broken. But in my personal opinion, after these changes, Dioseko is very, very busted as a bloodline. Next up is going to be Explosion. Explosion is actually going to be above Bolt on meh. Explosion now has a block break on the third ability. And all the abilities, I'm pretty sure, are instant now. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure they removed the hand signs on all of Explosion's abilities, so it's overall just a very good bloodline to use if you're actually stuck with it. But if you're not stuck with it, roll it, try and get a better one. And here's actually going to be Forged Akuma, which is actually Shiver Akuma. There's a new one of it. It's called Shiver Akuma now. It's no longer called Forged. Shiver Akuma is going to be in really good at the top of really good after the changes Shiver Akuma is just overall a really, really good bloodline to use, aka Forged. And with the changes, you can now use the first ability for a lot of infinite combos. Next up would be Frost. Frost is actually going to be above Bolt and Below Explosion on Meh. It just got a slight buff, and Frost overall is just kind of a bad bloodline. There's a bleh. Next up is to be Gold Sand. Gold Sand is going to be in good, above Crystal, below Azarashi. Simply because Gold Sand actually did get a rework on the first ability, so now it does a lot of damage. That's pretty much the only reason why it moved up in the tier list. Next up to be Wanziyame. Wanziyame is actually going to be at the bottom really good. Wanziyame overall is a very good bloodline to use now, which is why it's in the really good tree. Wanziyame overall is just a... You should just try it. Try it and you guys will see what I mean. They buffed it a ton and it's just overall a really good bloodline to use. Next up is to be Ice. Ice is actually going to be at the bottom of good. Ice, you guys are surprised as I am on good. There is two common bloodlines now. Ice first ability no longer has hand signs. Yep, one of the best combo extenders in the game no longer has hand signs. Keep that in mind. Next up is to be Ink. Guys, I know this is going to be such a massive change, but Ink now has one of the longest stuns in the game, and it's actually super easy to hit. It also has a block break, which is also one of the easiest abilities in the game to hit. You guys aren't going to believe this, but Ink is actually going to be at the bottom of really good now. Ink has made such a comeback because of these changes, and I'm so glad Realm made them because Ink has needed it for so long now. Next up to be Apollo Sand. Apollo Sand is going to be in really good. Actually, at the bottom, really good. I feel like Apollo Sand spikes are pretty much the only thing Apollo Sand has going for it right now. But the other abilities are very good. And the mode spec of Apollo Sand and also the weapon increase, like the range increase off of the mode, is overall just really, really good. Next up is to be Eternal. Eternal, in my opinion, is going to be in really good. Below Azim and above Dong. And Eternal overall, I feel like is a bloodline that it did get changes. So now the C-spec does not last for nearly as long. But it does do the same amount of damage. But Eternal, as it is a very good combo extender. It's a very good combo bloodline. You guys should check it out if you guys haven't already, but it's been in the game for so long, I'm sure a lot of you guys know. It's just really good for combos. Next up to be Joke. Joke is going to be in good, above Gold Sand, below Azarashi. Joke is just a worse version of Golden Joke. It does a lot less damage, and overall, it's just, there's no real reason to ever use Joke since Golden Joke is in the game. Next up to be Kakatsu. Kakatsu actually did get a rework recently. Kakatsu is going to be below Joke and above Gold Sand on good. Kakatsu overall is just a very good bloodline to use. I haven't seen it used that much yet, so it may actually be higher in this tier list. Keep that in mind. The Kakatsu changes are actually immense, and they may have actually made this bloodline in the really good tier instead of good. Next up is to be Kaijin. Kaijin has actually gotten a lot of changes recently, and they're actually going to be for the better. Azarashi is going to be above it, and Joke is going to be below Kaijin. I feel like the changes of Kaijin are very good overall, and maybe if someone wants to use this bloodline as a main and main this bloodline and actually do really, really good with it, it may actually go up in this tier list. The Z-Spec now block breaks, so the monkey can now block break people. And overall, Kaijin is just a very good bloodline to use. Overall, that's why it's in the good tree. Next up is to be Kurata. Kurata, with all these changes, actually could be at the top of good. I feel like Kurata, even with all these changes, is still a very, like, good bloodline now. It's just a lot better than it used to be, and I feel like Kurata is now usable. It used to not be usable whatsoever, but I feel like it is very usable now as a bloodline. Next up to be Kenichi. I actually haven't seen that many people using Kenichi, and actually did get nerfed. It's going to be at the bottom of broken because the auto dodge is still there, and overall it's just a really good bloodline to use, but it actually has been getting nerfed a lot recently, so just keep that in mind. Kenichi may be moving down to really good in the future. Next up to be Doke. Doke is going to be in really good, above Eternal, below Azim Senko. I feel like Doke overall, the first ability is kind of what carries the bloodline. Let's be real now. Doke, the first ability is what everyone thinks of when they think of Doke. It's just one of the single best combo abilities in the game. And the C-Spec is nothing to laugh at either. The C-Spec actually is a weapon M1 comboer. And it's just overall a really good bloodline. Next up is to be Concho. Concho's actually going to be below Ashes Storm, above Clay on really good. The C-Spec now does 88k. Yeah, you heard that. The C-Spec now does 88k. And the first ability of it, now I'm pretty sure does a lot more damage, if I'm not mistaken. The first ability does do a lot more damage now. It also is an insane chi stealer. Lava is actually going to be at the bottom of good and moved from bad to the bottom of good with the changes. I feel like Lava is very usable as a bloodline now. If you guys haven't, be sure to go check it out. I feel like the changes has made it usable as a bloodline overall. Next up is going to be Minakami. Minakami, in my personal opinion, is going to be at the bottom of really good. I feel like Minakami, the puppet, is really, really good for combos. The puppet is actually probably one of the most underrated abilities in the game because you can use abilities while riding it. It does like 70k damage, and it is like an 8-second ability where you can keep someone stunned for 8 seconds. It is absolutely insane. You guys need to check out that ability. Seriously. Next up is going to be Mud, and you guys are not going to believe this. Mud is going to be an absolutely busted... No, I'm just playing. It's going to be at the bottom really good. Now, Mud, funnily enough, Mud, the change to the first ability now makes Mud a really good bloodline. I feel like the changes to Mud have been absolutely immense in making the bloodline actually good, which is hilarious because the buffs are more than someone could have ever asked for while buffing Mud because it's a 1 out of 6 bloodline. But if you guys haven't used Mud already, go use Mud. The first ability is now extremely good. Next up is going to be Nature. Nature's actually going to be in good, above Kakatsu, below Gold, below Joke. Now, in my personal opinion, Nature is one of the best common bloodlines now, but it's now not better than Mud. But in my opinion, it was probably the best common bloodline, but now Mud is, obviously, because Mud is ridiculous. But Nature's still there. Nature's still good. Use Nature if you have to. And Nature also has a very good stun. Next up is going to be Nectar. Nectar is actually going to be at the top of good. The new Nectar Z-Spec is probably one of the best Z-Specs in the game. You guys need to go check it out. It does like 60k a proc, and it can keep someone stunned really, really easily. It also does not drain that much mode, and you can fly around on the bee. Like, the Nectar is actually really, really good now, and it now has a block break ability where you ride the bee around. It now block breaks, and also the first ability now does a lot more damage, if I'm not mistaken. Next up would be Okami. Now, Okami is actually going to be below Akuma, above Black Shock. There was actually no changes to this bloodline. I have just opened my eyes and seen this bloodline is actually good. Yeah, you heard that here. This bloodline is actually good. This is probably one of the, the most underrated bloodlines in the game right now. The first ability does one of the highest damage outputs of any bloodline in the game. Okami is just ridiculous now. Next up would be Paper. Paper is actually going to be in good, below Okami, above Black Shock. Now, the reason for this is because Paper, the changes are very good, and it did move it up on the tier list, but I feel like the damage output, it just doesn't match some of the other damage bloodlines right now. I feel like if they wanted to buff Paper, the Z-Spec needs the block break. And that change was actually presented to the balance team, but apparently they didn't want to go through with it. But now the Z-Spec is also instantaneous, if you guys did not know that. But if they made the Z-Spec block break, Paper would overall be a really good bloodline instead of just a good bloodline. Next up to be Atomic. Atomic got nerfed. Yeah, you heard that. Atomic got nerfed. It's going to be at the bottom of good now. It actually got a big nerf. The second ability no longer does that crap ton amount of damage anymore. It's just overall just a good bloodline to use, but there's other bloodlines now. Next up would be Ryan Akuma. Now, Ryan Akuma, I'm going to be actually putting below Concho and above Clay. Ryan Akuma actually has made strides as a bloodline. I used to think it was bad, and now it's very good, in my personal opinion. I feel like Ryan Akuma overall is just a decent bloodline now. Simply because of the changes, they actually buff the damage like crazy, and that's really the reason why Ryan is actually somewhat of a usable bloodline in my eyes now. Next is going to be Red Goku. We did it, boys! Red Goku is broken again. The second ability is no longer on the stun global cooldown, yes, but the third ability now is, but I feel like that's very fair, because if they're going to remove the second ability off, the third ability needs to be added. But the pool is no longer on the stun global cooldown, so expect crazy combos in the future. And also, the first and third spec of it are now absolutely insane. Go try it if you guys haven't already. And not to mention that the mode now only has a 60-second cooldown, so be prepared for that King of Hell spam in the future, guys. That is a very low cooldown for an ability. Not to mention the first ability now has a 10k damage increase. Next up is going to be Ren Shiki. Ren Shiki is actually going to be above Clay, below Ryan Akuma, and really good. I feel like Ren Shiki, as the bloodline overall, is a lot better than it used to be. Red Shiki was actually a meh bloodline in my opinion, but now it's actually a really good bloodline. The third ability was buffed. All the abilities were buffed, and overall Red Shiki is just good to use. If you guys haven't already, go check it out. Next is going to be Riser Akuma. Riser Akuma is going to be in broken above Bankai. Riser Akuma as good as ever. They haven't changed it at all, but they did buff Bankai. But Riser's just as good as ever, guys. Next is going to be Raikid Shizen. Raikid Shizen is actually going to be in really good, at the top of really good. Raikid Shizen, they buffed Raikid Shizen. Yes, they buffed Raikid Shizen. The third ability now does like 140k. I'm not even joking. If you guys don't believe me, literally go into Raikid Shizen mode and use the trees on someone. It'll do like 100 or 20k to someone. It is absolutely insane. I don't know why they buffed the damage by ×2, and they also lowered the cooldown of it. Next is to be Sabaru. Sabaru, in my opinion, is going to be in good. Probably below Azarashi, above Kaijin. I feel like it's a very good 1v1 bloodline, but for things other than 1v1s, you get absolutely slaughtered. It's just not meant for team fights whatsoever. Next up is going to be Sand. Sand's actually going to be at the bottom of good. I feel like Sand as a bloodline just isn't very good in my personal opinion. I feel like Sand is very good in CC, but out of CC, I feel like there's just better bloodlines to use than Sand. But the third ability is actually very good to use. If you guys don't actually have a flying ability, you could just use that ability to fly around instead. Next is going to be Satori Akuma. Now, Satori Akuma is going to be below Shiver Akuma and above Ashes Storm. Satori Akuma actually did get a buff, so now some of the abilities are now instantaneous, and it still has that amazing stun on the third ability. Next up would be Scorched. Bad. Alright, next up, guys. Next up is going to be Seishin. Seishin is actually going to be in good. I'm going to be putting it... above Paper and below Akami. I feel like Seishin, the C-Spec, no longer stuns, but it did have the end lag reduced, and it now block breaks as well. The abilities of Seishin are also pretty good to use. If you guys have not used Seishin, go check it out. It's just a really good bloodline to use. I feel like it just hasn't had the potential brought out of it yet, and hopefully I see that in the future. Next is going to be Sengoku. Sengoku is actually going to be the... Nah, we're not going to put it at the bottom really good. I'll put it below Ink, above Apollo Sand. I feel like still the second ability carries it, but it actually did get a buff for the first ability, so now the first ability now block breaks, but overall Sengoku is just mid-tier, really good. Next is actually going to be Senko. Senko, in my personal opinion, is actually going to be in good, above Nature, or below Jokai. Now, the reason for this is because Senko does have a time stop, and it is very good for single target damage, and you also can get some AoE if you guys hit it right, but it's just mainly meant for running. I feel like Senko's movement compared to other bloodlines is absolutely insane. Senko definitely has the movement advantage on pretty much almost every other bloodline in the game. Next up to be Shadow. Shadow's actually going to be in good, above Atom. Nah, that's a little low, isn't it, guys? Let's put it below Senko, above Nature. Shadow's just a stun bloodline. They actually nerfed it, but they did buff it a little bit recently. Tiny bit. But it just overall is really good. It's not a really good bloodline, but it's a good bloodline to use. It's good in combos, so if you guys have it, go check it out. Next would be Shindai. Oh, Shindai. Man, they buff Shindai. Next up, that's actually going to be Shizen. Shizen's actually going to be at the bottom of really good. Shizen is basically Raikage Shizen, but worse. A lot worse, actually, because they actually buffed Raikage Shizen's third ability and did not buff Shizen's third ability. So now Shizen's strictly just a much worse version of Raikage Shizen. Next up is actually going to be Sound. Sound's actually going to be moved up in the tier list. It's actually going to be above Senko and below Jokai. The second ability of Sound now does 80... I'm pretty sure it does 80k in mode now. And it's almost instantaneous. Has no hand signs at all. And overall, Sound just a very good bloodline to use now for damage specifically. Next up is going to be Steam. Steam's actually going to be at the bottom of good. Simply because... Next up to be Steam. Steam is actually going to be at the top of mess. In my personal opinion, Steam is going to be at the top of meh. Simply because Steam just overall is just like... I feel like Steam, even with the buffs, there's just things to work on when it comes to Steam. But Steam is a very underrated bloodline, all things considered. And if you guys can beat someone's Steam, be sure to flex on them. My tier list is actually filling up here, guys. It's hard to keep all the bloodlines on here, though. All right. So next up is going to be Storm. Storm's actually going to be in good, above Sound, and below Jokai. This is because Jokai, I feel like it's just better than Storm, but Storm is very good for stunning. Storm has very good AoE, and the C-Spec of Storm is actually very good. It does a lot of damage, and Storm actually did get buffed recently. Next up is actually going to be Tengoku. Tengoku's actually going to be at the bottom of Broken. Tengoku has made it back to Broken. The C-Spec now does a lot more damage than it used to, and it now block breaks. Third ability, so much damage, and it no longer knocks people back, which is absolutely insane for combos. I've actually been using Tengoku in my combos now, because the beam is absolutely ridiculous. The other abilities are still the same, other than the second ability no longer being on the stun, global cooldown. So now Tengoku overall is just a really good bloodline, and it's broken, dare may I say that. Next up to be Glacier. Glacier's actually going to be the bottom of good. I feel like Glacier has insane team fight potential, but other than team fights, Glacier just doesn't stick it out over any of the other bloodlines. I feel like in 1v1s, Glacier's actually terrible, like horrid in 1v1s. Next up is going to be Inferno. Inferno's going to be, I mean, Inferno, bottom of good. I feel like Inferno just, it isn't good enough. It doesn't give you M1 priority. If it gave it, I feel like if Realm made you have M1 priority on the Inferno dash, then it would actually be in really good. But simply because it does not give you M1 priority, I feel like it's going to be at the bottom of good simply because of that. Next up is actually going to be Ryan Ren. Ryan Ren, they nerfed this so much that it's going to be below Satori and above Ashen Storm now. Ryan Ren is no longer broken. I have to say it, guys. Ryan Ren is no longer broken. I actually barely see Ryan Ren now. They nerfed the first ability again, and I'm pretty sure they nerfed the third ability too. And the second ability is now on the auto dodge global cooldown. It does not last nearly as long either. There's just some changes. The Z spec of Ryan Ren is carrying it right now, and I'm pretty sure it steals chi from people, which is pretty much a saving grace of not moving Ryan Ren to the bottom really good. It's still near broken. Next up, it's actually going to be Vine. Vine's going to be in really good below Sengoku and above Apollo State. I feel like Vine as a bloodline is very underrated right now. I feel like Vine is still very good, even though they nerfed the clones like crazy. I feel like Vine is just a very good bloodline to use. Be sure to check it out if you guys haven't. Next up is going to be Hair. Hair is actually going to be in really good. I'm probably going to be putting it probably above Ryan Ren and below Satori. I mean above Ashes Storm, above Ryan Ren, below Satori. Yeah, I feel like Hair as a bloodline now is still very, very, very good to use, but it's not broken like it used to be because the second ability is on the stun global cooldown now, but it still is extremely good to use in combos. Next up is actually going to be Light Jockey. Light Jockey is actually going to be, man, people really are going to like this. I'm going to be putting Light Jockey at the bottom of broken along with Dark Jockey, but I'm going to be putting it above Light Jockey because it looks better. Dark and Light Jockey the counter is so good, guys. It is actually so good. It carries this bloodline right now. And the Z spec of it, the mode spec, is also extremely good. And the third ability is just garbage, but you could use it sometimes. The first ability is very good for block breaking because it is instant, so people aren't going to expect you using it. Mecha Spirit is actually going to be in really good now, guys. It's actually going to be below Ryan, above Red Shiki. We're getting quite zoomed out now, aren't we? But it's actually going to be below Ryan Ren. I mean, not below Ryan Ren. Below Ryan Akuma and above Red Shiki. Mecha Spirit without the mode is now extremely good. The first ability kind of carries it now. But I think the first ability is actually going to get nerfed eventually. But Mecha Spirit overall is just a really good bloodline to use. Next up is going to be Odin Sabaru. Odin Sabaru is going to be near Mecha Spirit on really good. Probably above Mecha Spirit, below Ryan Akuma. Odin Sabaru, it still is really good to use, but it just doesn't have that oomph it used to have because the clones aren't nearly as good as they used to be. But the first ability and the second ability of it still are extremely good, and so are the mode specs. Next up is actually going to be Pika Senko. Pika Senko, in my personal opinion, is going to be at the bottom really good. Pika Senko it's just good for running. I feel like that's not very good as a bloodline. I don't feel like it's a very good concept. It's just meant for running, pretty much. Next up is going to be Cobra. Cobra is actually going to be in the top of good. I feel like Cobra as a bloodline is very bad at the moment. I feel like Cobra just isn't a very good bloodline right now. And then Cobra does need buffed to maintain really good or broken status. Next up is going to be Giovanni Shizen. Giovanni Shizen is actually going to be in really good. I'm probably going to be putting it... I'll probably be putting it below Mecha Spirit, above Renshiki. The second ability is still very good. The first ability is meant to use, but the main thing is actually the mode spec. It is basically just a full Susanoo, but a tree instead. It's very cool. It's very fun, and the second ability is still very good. Next up is going to be Deva Rengoku and Deva Sengoku. I'm actually going to be putting these in really good. I'm probably going to be putting it above Ryan Ren, and Sengoku doesn't look as cool as Rengoku, so there we go. But Deva Rengoku and Deva Sengoku are actually really good bloodlines. After the changes, I feel like they're very good, and the third ability is going to be very, very annoying to do. And I feel like after the changes, they would actually be at the bottom really good, but now they're going to be at the top of really good. Next up would be Typhoon. Typhoon's actually going to be at the bottom really good. I feel like Typhoon as a KG, there's not really much to say other than the fact that Typhoon kind of was a letdown. I think they are going to be buffing it from what they said in the announcements, but if they don't buff it, expect it to stay at the bottom really good. Next up would be the Ghost Rider KG. Ghost Rider KG is actually going to be at the bottom of broken. It has a lot of move stack abilities, so expect a lot of Ghost Rider combos in the future when I actually unlock this bloodline. Next up is going to be Emerald. Emerald is actually going to be in really good, probably above Sengoku, below Ink. I feel like Emerald as a bloodline is very, very good. If you know how to actually use the second ability, it could be one of the single best abilities for you to actually use in this game. And I forgot to actually add these to the tier list, but they're just skins. And so this looks better than Jotaro Shizen, and this looks better than Cobra. But yeah, guys. Anyways, guys, it's going to actually be it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe, like, comment more. Let's see. Hopefully, I'll see you next one, guys. Bye-bye.